Welcome everyone to Elven Spirituality video. I am very excited to actually give the author of this wonderful book right here, The Ritual of the Endari, and we have Calantirniel here to actually speak about this book and to give us an idea of what is inside of this book. I read it. It's a great, wonderful book to have. It's about 40 pages. And it's just a great book to have in your library if you are interested in different spiritual paths and you are interested in deepening your connection to the Tolkien elves in particular. This book is written in a way that actually parallels what you will find in the Silmarillion and in the other books. They did a wonderful job of actually researching and looking at all the times of the rituals and the dances and the feasts that the elves partaked in. And they actually put that all in a book for everyone so that they can feel like they're actually taking part in the same type of rituals. So, Calantirniel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Kimber L. I'm so excited to be on your channel tonight. So I wanted to say hi and, Aya and Laita to all of you that are tuning in to this video. And I have my copy too. So this is only for the one ritual, which is the middle days. That's Endari, which is the middle days. And it comes on September 25th to 27th. So you see that this is a very timely video for getting your hands on this little work. And we do have the solar observances that we call them for the rest of the year. They range from March 28th, which is Yesterday, which is the Elven New Year, goes all the way through to Mitare, which is the last day of the Elven year. And by the way, the Elven year is called the Loa, or the calendar for the year. It's called the Loa, L-O-A. So Vinya Loa means new year. So that's what March 28th is. So then we have Nos Na Lothion, which is the birth of flowers, which we align with Vana. And the alignments, we did that. Tolkien didn't do that, but he definitely had the calendar of holidays, and he also made the calendar of months where the moon would go through its cycle. And that was in the Numenorian calendar. Like if you look on the Encyclopedia Varda, they have a free app there, or free website for you to reference, like what day is this, and you want to see, like on the full moon and you put a day in there, you want to see what month it is. And that's how we actually determine our moons. And we also determine our solar holidays from that calendar. So luckily, those don't change.
So can I ask you to give us a little bit of the introduction to how this project got started? How did this book come about? Tell us about how long the research took, because you had to go through the books, because Tolkien does not just tell you exact dates. He gives you little hints of the seasons and the environment, the way that it is during a certain time of when the elves would have a type of feast or a dance or some type of celebration. The elves were always celebrating, but special for these particular type of holidays. So give us an introduction about how this project became inspired.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just go back to the beginning, because that's the best way to do it. I ended up, when I watched Lord of the Rings years ago, and, of course, who didn't love the elves? Seriously, who did not love the elves as they were portrayed in the movies? They were amazing. And it's like, wow, how come that feels like more like elven energy than any of the elf archetypes that I've run into before? And I just want to mention to our audience that I have been more on the neo-paganism path for a long time before I fell into this. So I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my background prior to being a co-founder of the Elven Path. So I was looking at it as a lens of, wow, this just feels like an archetype that I need to like do some more studies. That I think that there's something here. So my husband at the time, who I believe is on the other side and probably here right now listening to us and saying, yay, elven consciousness, right? He said, you need to check out my book, The Silmarillion, if you really want to understand the elven archetype as Tolkien tells the story. And it's the stories prior to the stories of Lord of the Rings, etc. And I said, okay. And we were moving to Montana at the time. So we were in San Diego, we were watching the movies, and we moved to Montana, long story. We're unpacking, and he found this crumbling copy of the Silmarillion that he's had forever. And I said, oh, great. And this was May of 2005. And the reason I remember this is because Nathan Elwin's birthday was a few days later. Okay. And we found each other, and it turned out like, wow, it's his birthday. So that's why I remember. And so I started reading the Silmarillion at around what would be the pagan holiday of Beltane, okay, of 2005. And my whole body started vibrating. I mean, just things started happening to me that I was like, okay, this is real. There is no question about it. And my brain would say, oh no, this isn't real. This is just really crafty, making it feel like it's real. And it's in my head, and wow, what a good job. And I kept reading, and no, this is deeper. This is archetypal. This is original. This is deeper than like maybe even a lot of the pantheons we have now. And it was just resurrected by Tolkien because, well, in my hindsight of studies with that, he clearly had the ability to do this. So, and if you have any doubt about that, the Tolkien professor, Dr. Corey Olsen, has a passage where he talks about C.S. Lewis and the Inklings and Tolkien. They're all gathered around and talking about their stories, and Tolkien shares some of his stories. And they said, oh, wow, we love that. But what happens with this and that and the other? And they're all trading like their stories. And Tolkien didn't say, oh, I'll rework that part. Oh, yeah, I'll reimagine that part. He said something else. He said, oh, I guess I better go find out. Okay. So I feel that tells me that he definitely was journeying into this place, and he had the ability to basically traverse Faerie, and he called it Faerie, which that's in the Lost Tales. That's a whole other layer that we'll get to. But so we decided, first off, I decided to find somebody that felt like I did. And it took me 2 weeks. And it took Nathan Elwin, the co-author, 20 years to find me, because I found him. And we found each other through a mutual contact at that time that we've actually lost track of. And this was the guy that used to run the alternative Tolkien group that was in England at the time. Very cool guy. Martin Baker, and I miss him. I don't know what has happened to him. I've been trying to find him for a while. So that's how we met. And then Nathan had already made an elven group that, we were already like, he was finding people, but most of them didn't have the capability of coming up with a ritual, okay, and a calendar and, a program, okay. And since I had pagan background, I'd studied many different backgrounds, Hindu, Celtic, Norse, like shamanism, like all kinds of paths. And so I had a really good idea about how all of them worked. And I thought, I wonder if this would be a standalone, like just with what Tolkien wrote, if we could do a standalone path that like will reach back into this archetype that Tolkien has brought forth for us. And it happened. And between Nathan and I, we like just totally, we were like, I'm an astrologer professionally. So I've had, experience since 1993 with that. So that was coming in, like lots of things in my background were coming in. But then we needed to make sure that it cleared with the Legendarium. And that is where Nathan Elwyn came in for me big time, because he was a Legendarium master, is a Legendarium master. Wherever you are, Dave, I hope you're safe. I hope Florence isn't kicking your bottom. Hurricane. Okay, so
Yeah.
we have this is one of the rituals, and we plan on having all of the rituals in a book at a later date, but we published this because we wanted to have something in print so that Dr. Marcus Davidson could refer to our work in his academic publishings, that because he studied us for a good long while. And he originally was going to do alternative religions based on pop culture with like Jediism and things like that. And when he discovered us, he changed everything and decided to make it about the Elven Path, and meaning Tië Eldaliéva, and also Il Salunte Valion, which is Nathan's other group. And that's kind of how it came about. For me, I just remembered like just vibrating so much about how true all of this is to me. And I really resonate with Varda Elentari, the Queen of the Stars, who is also called Lady Elbereth Tintale, Starkindler, and is the one featured with Galadriel putting the water in the vial that Frodo carries that has the light of, it's the light of Lady Elbereth.
Yes.
And I resonate with her a lot. Oh, wait, I'm an astrologer. Oh, isn't that a coincidence? So I got deeper into Star Queen archetypes and discovered that she really is actually the Star Queen archetype that I connect with the most from the stories. She is incredible. And when you experience her energy, I don't think you're the same. I just honestly don't. And I have not been the same since 2005. I still practice this. You know, it's even if it's private, or, you know, if other people want to with me, that's fine. But yeah, so there you go. Guilty as charged.
Well, that is quite a journey into this book. And I just think that it's so important for people to have right now an idea of the Elven spirituality, because people are very curious about what it is. There's little tiny glimpses of it that Tolkien put within the stories, but it's not very clear about exactly what the Elven spirituality is. So it's nice to have somebody that actually goes deeper into it to actually find and discover. When I read the books, I had an idea of what the Elven spirituality is, and it's very, very difficult for me to actually express it in words, but I feel it deep inside. And especially being somebody who understands a lot of different religious paths like you, what I really appreciated was that you did exactly what I'm trying to do on the channel, is bring in a unity with all sorts of paths into the Elven consciousness and spirituality. I think that that was an amazing part of Tolkien, his ability to be able to be open-minded about lots of different paths, because that is one of the reasons why a lot of Catholics and Christians have a problem with Tolkien, is because he doesn't seem like a real Catholic to them, because he is so open-minded about magic and about the Valar just representing almost like the pagan type of religion. But then he has Eru. So he has a mix. You have the idea of the one creator, and then you have the Valar. So it's phenomenal that he was able to bring it together. And when you read this book, when you go through the actual rituals, you do allow that to open up. In fact, I wanted to read a very good part here, which I really appreciated, was when you talk about the idea of the Christ consciousness. And so what you actually say is, if you are a Christian, or if you're another type of spiritual path, then do this, or allow yourself to do this. And so you allow someone to have the ability to have a different path. It's not completely all pagan. It's actually open to all sorts of spiritual paths. So it's really wonderful to see that. And I appreciate it because I'm somebody on my channel that's actually trying to bring people together. I don't want anybody to feel like if they're from a different spiritual path, they can't be an elf or they can't have elven wisdom or consciousness. Because I believe that it is something that it represents an archetype of an evolved type of human. And so it is, I mean, the elves were the first. So yes, the elves were leaving Middle Earth, but to me, it symbolizes an older soul, an older humanoid soul that is ready to make the transition to move on to, you know, other dimensions and higher states of consciousness. And so I really appreciate that. That's exactly what I've been trying to do with my own channel. And I just think that it's really wonderful how you include that. And you do that several times. Actually, when we get into the ritual that we're going to do for everybody, you actually allow a little part of Hinduism. So you actually do see parts of Christianity, Hinduism. You have, can you tell us a little bit, is there another part of religious path that influenced you as well?
Oh, I would say just the Western neo-pagan calendar to some degree, because I was practicing that prior to knowing the calendar that Tolkien has, which, by the way, is different if you didn't notice from the book. There are 6 seasons, not 4 seasons. They're not of equal length. The shorter seasons would be the faster transitioning seasons. And the longer seasons, there's 2 of them, they're based around the solstices. So it's the Rive, which is winter, and Laire, which is summer. These are the longer seasons. So it's very interesting that the elves would, during the fast time of the year, they would break that down into 2 seasons. And then the solstice would literally be the longer season. It's like that, and that's exactly how we experience that. And I thought that that was pretty brilliant on the elves' part for their calendar. And I'm thinking, gosh, you know, wow, where did this come from? You know, as far as like the inspiration and stuff. So I just feel really, I feel really blessed to have fallen into this, because I will tell you that in studying everything, I would, you know, like visit visit paths and visit archetypes. And I'm not a person that likes to mix the archetypes too much, because I think that there can be some consequences that you don't like by accidentally mixing something in Greek culture with, say, Mayan culture, and you don't know that it's going to be a clash or a side effect of something happening that you're not expecting because you didn't do the homework, okay? Or you didn't understand that you just can't just mishmash everything and make it soup. Like, that's just not really how it works. So I try, if I did practice things, to keep it in integrity with whatever system I was into, okay? And I do know that, like, a long time ago, there was even blends, like, for instance, with Isis and Greek culture and things like that. And if it makes sense, okay. But if it doesn't make sense, then, you know, caution, okay? However, if I practiced Hindu, then I would miss doing, say, Egyptian. Okay, if I practiced that, then I would, say, miss Celtic energies and Faerie, like all the stuff that, you know, you and I talked about earlier. If we do that, oh, then might miss the Norse culture, or I might miss African culture, or I might miss Chinese culture, or other things that I've studied, like indigenous things all over the planet, that they all have some elements that are together, but you don't practice them all together. Okay, when I found Tolkien with the Silmarillion, and my whole body vibrated. It was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. This goes beyond all of the energies of, you know, everything that I was looking for. I feel like I'm practicing it all together. Everything that is in Hinduism, that I don't miss it anymore. Everything that was in the Celtic paths, I don't miss it anymore. Everything that is in the Norse or any of the other pathways, I don't miss it anymore, because to me, Elven, the energy, it's it. That's it. That's all you need. So if you are feeling like that out in internet land and you feel like, oh, the elves have an answer, keep digging, because they probably do for you also.
Yeah, we were talking about that, how Tolkien actually seemed to be somebody that was able to visit these realms of Faerie, and so his writings came from a place of knowledge. Not, I mean, he did say imagination and fantasy, but I believe that they came from a place of knowledge, either prior knowledge. I always thought that he had a fairy soul himself, but also just the idea of being able to see what is unseen but can be felt and actually known when you're connected to those higher realms. And Tolkien was connected to those higher realms, and so he saw the land of Faerie, and he understood the way that the elven beings actually worked. Now, of course, there's so many different types of elves and fairies, but the elven beings that he spoke about were ones, I believe, that were representing the highest consciousness level that that a fairy could attain, because they represent almost like the angelic beings. I mean, the angels and the elves, the elven, the Eldar, are very, very similar. And I think that people always see that and they're wondering, well, why is the elven energy so angelic? Because Tolkien was very much in tune with that. And I just made a video about the idea that when you're an elven soul, you'll be able to have information about the angels as well as information about the fairies. They're very, very connected, and they really play on each other. And then, of course, you have the goddesses and the gods, the different types of archetypes that you talked about, which will always very much connect to the Valar. And so, yeah, Tolkien was brilliant, and he was able to see these realms, and you were able to bring that into reality for people. And I just think that that's really great. And we met in a very interesting kind of way, because it's not like I contacted you after I read this book. It's that you found me. You actually found me, I believe it was on Twitter first, and then we started to become Facebook friends. And then we just kind of connected that way. And, you know, it's like I'm learning as I'm going through my Elven awakening, as we all are, and we're remembering where we came from and our origins, like you said, that the elves kind of represent a very organic type of natural origin that humans come from. And so when you're going through your Elven awakening within this human vessel, you start to realize that there's so many more Elven souls out there. And so we are meeting one another. I had another guest when we talked about the I Am Elf, an elf page. I had another one, and she talked about how she's like, no doubt, there's an Elven awakening going on. There's an Elven type of rising of consciousness, and people are awakening and getting their ears completely changed just to look like an elf. So it's just really phenomenal to actually see this going on. And I think that you were searching for someone, and he was searching for someone, and then you meet, and now you can know and look back, you know, because you did this, what, 2005 was it?
That's when we started. Yeah, the book itself came out much later,
Okay.
but the path itself came together in 2005. We got the calendar pretty solid by 2007, because we did some things first, and we rearranged it when we realized, okay, no, we're going to go by the Elven. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to make it standalone so that the Elven path could mix if you were a Christian, if you were a, you know, Hindu, if you were, you know, any other religion, okay, you could pick it up. And even if you're an atheist, I swear, you could probably find something in here. So I was going to mention that I think that Tolkien, besides his ability to traverse Faerie in the way that he did, I think that he had an extra ability. And I think that that's why he was able to bring all of this forth and no one else.
Yes.
And that ability was language. Okay. He was making up languages as a kid. Okay. And he also had a gift of it, like being in Oxford University. He had access to like ancient manuscripts. I could just imagine him like touching the paper and reading with the ink and all of the thousands of years and just like having the download, right? Just, I know what they're saying, because he actually had the way to really dig into that through language. And I think that as we notice from the story of Eru and how he created the Ainur, and we talk about, like there's different versions of how like the world came into being and whatnot. And I would say that the singing into existence that the Ainur did is such a beautiful representation versus, like, say, for instance, we have a lot of the sexual magic and things like that happen with, sorry about that. That was my mic, huh? Drop the mic. So we have a lot of, well, anyway, I just wanted to mention that I feel like that language played a really huge different piece, as well as music, because we're talking about that the Ainur, each of them knew their own piece and performed it, and then collectively Eru was the only one that knew what would happen. Okay, and then when the earth started forming, he's like, okay, which one of you Ainur want to go hang out and be stewards of this place, okay, and like make things and do stuff, and then the 15 originally came. One of them had a bad attitude, right? so it became 14 really in the end of it, and so then a whole bunch of helpers that were a little bit like lower down, which were called the Maiar. Okay, they came also to be helpers. And in the Lost Tales, there's a passage about the fairies, and they are called the nature spirits, and it talks about that they existed before Arda. So it actually is that fairy energy is an older energy than the elves. So this is a new creation, and they were there, and like to them, it's like Earth is a playground. They're not invested the same way as elves are. And so when people say, oh, fairies and elves they're the same, nah, no, I don't think so.
No, there's different energy.
There's a way different energy. And I get along with fairies, so like no problem. I mean, and especially if you know the etiquette and everything and all of that. But the elven archetype that is so, I guess, resonant, that actually come from, the Norse Alfar and, other, like where it's statuesque beings and this type of thing. I just feel that just felt more like the right elven archetype. And I think that Tolkien is responsible for bringing that back. And he actually blames Shakespeare for it going away, but maybe it had to. I'm not going to be mad at Shakespeare.
That part of the idea of when you talked about how Faerie was one of the first kind of the ancient, I guess you could say, realm that was created before Arda, that explains a lot where the other creatures came from as well. And the elves contained that similar type of energy, but also that's where we might have gotten, the hobbits. We know that Frodo, when we look at Belinda Took, she had part fairy within her. So a lot of people are aware that those hobbits come from. If the elves came first and all this, well, then the hobbits had that also, that part fairy within them. And so, Tolkien was a genius with also seeing light language, and understanding light language. And I made a video, actually. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but I actually intuitively understood that the Elven language is a light language, because light language is something that really, when you're working with light language, it's very healing. It's very it opens your consciousness up, and you're expressing your soul. I mean, you're not saying words that people will understand, but it's coming from your soul. It's coming from who you are in your essence, and it's very, very truthful. It's very sincere. And so the Elvish language of Quenya and Sindarin, they're all very sincere, and it really, it comes to me as a light language. And so intuitively, I made that video that Tolkien tapped into light language, or he was using the tool of light language to elevate humanity's consciousness when they would read these stories, and even when they learned how to speak Elvish. There's a wonderful recording of Tolkien actually reading Namarie. It's just beautiful to hear. And he also sings too. So yes, he himself had that fairy soul within him. He was very connected to music, and he brought together this amazing collaboration. And the Elven spirituality, I think it's really very beautiful. It's almost hard for me to even speak in words. I have a hard time because I'm introverted intuition, but it's very difficult for me to express how beautiful the Elven spirituality is. And the only way that I can explain it, and it's something that I'm tapping into as I deepen my path into mysticism, is that it is all paths that lead towards the light and goodness and grace and purity. It is all paths coming together into one. And it's just really, it's a beautiful, I just think that it's a really beautiful way of showing how the elves were just so much created out of harmony. Because part of unity with all types of spiritual paths coming together is being able to have all those different types of melodies playing out and coming together in a beautiful, orchestra and sounding harmonious together, and nothing really discord or clashing notes. And I just think that's what I feel that the Elven spirituality is. When I made my Elven Light Path group, I was trying to actually include everybody of all different faiths. And so we're right on the same wavelength with this, for sure. Because when I wrote my introductory to the Elven Light Path group, I said this was a group for all faiths, all religions, who just feel like they resonate with the Elves of Tolkien, and that their consciousness is being brought into that direction. It doesn't mean that you're forsaking your humanity. You're not. You're extending it. You're a human, but you're also expanding, and you're becoming more of an elven human. And I think Tolkien would be very proud, and I think he would be very happy to see so many people take his work very seriously. We're not delusional. We're not crazy otherkins, but we're actually taking his work very seriously enough to respect him and respect his vision, and to say, yes, this can be humanity. This can be what a beautiful community can look like when you have beings that are wise, that are harmonious, and that strive for always, to be good towards one another. The elves had their problems in the first ages, but by the third age, they started to learn. And so that's really what I believe that humanity can go through, because correlating to the elven ages, it almost seems like that was humanity's old ages, that we went through all of that. We went through the Middle Ages. We went all through that. So the elves' first age and second age, when they were warring with each other, when they were, fighting amongst each other's clans and things like that, and families, that represents the first ages of humanity. And so we should technically be in the third age. We are. So
I believe that we're in the third age, and I sometimes wonder how close we are to the end of that third song.
I know. Well,
like where it all wraps up and says, okay, we're all done. We get to go home now. And
yeah, that's the thing. It's about a choice. So, it's not like I'm trying to gather people onto a boat so we move on to somewhere else. But in a sense, I kind of am in the idea that I believe that those who are ready to move on to what they call the new earth is basically just reaching a point of higher states of living where you know how to deal with your problems and get through your obstacles in your life because you're looking at it from a higher perspective. And when you're looking at your life and your problems with a higher perspective, you can do anything. You can take anything that comes into your life, even though you and we both have had tragedies and we've had some hard times. The elven spirituality, the elven consciousness, having that always gives you strength and wisdom to know how to get over those obstacles because things are going to happen in the life. This is the duality of the universe. But when people are ready to step into their elven being, they will know how to transcend the material world.
I agree with that. And by the way, I'm not going to say that the Elven Path is the only way to do that, because that would be ridiculous. There's going to be humans out there that resonate with other, types of things. But if you're resonating with the Elven energy, just go with it. Just know that you're being led that way for a reason. And I will say that it's kind of interesting to think that in the stories that the Valar were the ones that, like, they were the stewards of Arda, and they also, like to say they made the plants and they made, the animals and they made all of the stuff. But elves and men, which, the firstborn, and then, they call them secondborn, but it's kind of funny how they just show up in the stories. So I've often thought about, I wonder if when the song was sang, okay, and all the discord and all of that, and then they were trying to fix it, but you can't fix something that's already broken. It's like gluing back to a glass that broke, and you can't do it. So you just kind of deal with what's left. And I wonder if the elven energy actually turned into the human energy. To be, you see what I'm saying? Like where humans actually have a piece of the elven in them if they so choose to strive toward that original light, which that's why we do what we're doing. It's for the people that want to strive back to the origin of the light. Okay. It covers every religion, everything. Like it just says, okay, this is it. It's like,
yes,
it does. For the people that are like me, this is it. So what I think about also is that I don't want people to get depressed that, oh, wow, I'm a human this time. Snap. I have to suffer, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something, you guys. Tolkien talked about in the books the gift of humanity. And what the gift is death. And what we mean by that is that you do not have to go through, many hundreds and thousands of years of grief and all of the things that the elves did during their stewardship of the planet. Okay, you get a break. And interestingly, where the elves go to Valinor and they get judged by Namo, who is also called the Halls of Mandos, okay, and Manwë is there to help judge, and then they live on Valinor until and still steward the earth until the end of their days, or so we know from the stories. Humans go directly to Iluvatar, and that's what they're talking about with the death energy. They go right to the source. Okay, so the price that they paid in the short life is actually that they get to join Iluvatar, and no one knows what happens after that. Okay, no one has been able to find in the stories what goes on. And I like to think that The elves are busy in Valinor, awakening everybody, because, you know, at Atalante, i.e. Numenor, sunk Atlantis. Okay, by the way, the calendars, if you take the Tolkien calendar and you overlap it with the Atlantis calendar, the sinking is lined up. Okay, so just FYI for people that are curious about that. There's a lot of things that we have found that it's not maybe Dave had called it mytho-historical, meaning that there is history overlap, but we don't have necessarily the physical evidence, but there's a lot of energetic resonance. And every now and again, there's a pocket where we see something like, you know, we see like, oh, wow, maybe the elves could have been here, you know, like archaeologically, we'll find something that isn't explainable. I wanted to say Nathan had found some things in Doggerland that really kind of tied in with a lot of what Tolkien brought through well before Doggerland was ever like explored, because we didn't even have the equipment, let alone the timing, and this was well after his death. So it was very interesting with that.
I think that is really important that you said that about the idea of, if we can go back to the human idea. I just want to give an example. My husband is completely human soul. I mean, he expresses himself as a human. He does not think about anything else, but he himself is very evolved. And he also, I do believe that this is his last life or last incarnation. So I believe that there are fairy souls. There are so many different types of souls that come in, and they have different purposes, and they have different things that they're supposed to do. And so no, not the elves and the fairies are, you know, there's no hierarchy. I don't believe in a hierarchy. I don't believe that the elves are better in any kind of way. I just believe that they do symbolize an old ancient soul that is connected to fairyland, or the realm of fairy. And so when you have that elven soul, you're going to have that type of resonance. But like you said, with the humans, they go directly to Eru Iluvatar, and you could take that as they are part of the same source. And I think that it is a beautiful gift to not always have to, you know, go through all of these ages. I mean, because yes, I mean, the elves were really wonderful, and they symbolized a great community of harmony, and they had a certain type of way that they held themselves, but they were also very weary. They were very tired. The light was fading from them, and you could just tell that they were kind of over it. And so I think that, like you said, there's something really beautiful about not being immortal. And so many people on our planet right now are looking for that immortality. And what you said was really nice, in the idea that we need to think of it as a gift as well, to be able to have a short amount of time on Earth, and then you move on to the next experience. Otherwise, you're stuck in on one planet, in one experience for all eternity, or until the time is done. And that is a little bit of a curse. Not necessarily a curse, but it's something that I just think that the better the gift, and what Tolkien was getting at, and basically what he was trying to say in the Silmarillion, is that the elves are wonderful. They have a lot to share. They are the teachers. They can give counsel to the other beings on Arda, and they can teach them ways and magic and all these things. But the humans had a special gift as well, and their gift that they were given was the mortality, and so they were able to actually leave this earth and not being bound to it like the elves were. So I think it's really important that you said that. I don't want people to come to my channel and think that I am a speciesist, where I think that, you know, only the elves are the greatest, and there's no hierarchy. There's no hierarchy.
No, they're all equal in the eyes of Iluvatar. The Valar, the Maiar, the elves, and the men, because these were all created. Now, dwarves were created by
Ule.
a Bella named Iule the Smith.
Yeah.
Okay, and he got excited, okay, because he's a workaholic. Okay. He's like, Mr. I'm making things. Oh, I need to make things. Oh, I need little helpers to make me things. Ooh, ooh. And he got excited and he made beings and he was just excited. So it was different than like, you know, some of the processes like orcs or things like that, you know, like where it was twisted and kind of dark and kind of yucky. Okay. The dwarves, it was like they just liked their earth and just all of the things that were about Ailey, but he didn't allow them to awaken when Eru said, I need to awaken the elves first. So you have the dwarves sleep. They can wake up after I awaken the elves. And he said, oh, okay. You know what I mean?
Because
So
exactly.
he has such a big heart. He just got excited.
Yeah. And the dwarves are just as, you know, special, and they have their own type of quality.
Yeah.
Hobbits do as well. Tolkien did have particular types of kind of archetypes that were described within the different characters, and I kind of go through that there is certain stages that being older and wiser is not necessarily better, but it's a purpose. The elves had a purpose, and their purpose was to teach and to guide, to bring and transition all the other, you know, beings into their next stage. Because at the end of the Silmarillion, you learn that it's now the time of man, and so man can come now. And so basically, the elves are passing over the baton, and they're saying, "Okay, now it's your turn." And so there's no hierarchy. It's how things are done for, I think, all over the universe. My favorite movie, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's called Contact. It's one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yes.
And at the very end, when she finally meets this extraterrestrial from Vega, he says, this is how it's done. We had people actually show us how to know and learn that we're not alone. And so now we're showing humans that you're not alone. It's the universe always has teachers and students. And then the students one day will grow into teachers, and then they will have students as well. And I'm very much into this idea that there's a sharing of roles, but not at the same time and not on the same lifetime. So when people watch my videos or they watch any type of spiritual teacher or anything and they say, man, I wish I was a spiritual teacher, you will be. You will.
Yeah. I wish I was. Oh, yeah. Be careful what you wish for.
You will. Exactly.
You know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. You know, it's that kind of same thing. You know, energy attracts energy.
I had one lifetime where I was watching other spiritual teachers and they were teaching me, and this is my lifetime to become a spiritual teacher and to help others. And the person who's watching me, the 18-year-old person who emailed me and said, I love your videos and I feel like an elf. I'm telling you, it will come their time where they will be able to teach others. Maybe not in this lifetime if they don't choose to be a teacher, but it's about passing down the baton. And that's
definitely. I'm a late bloomer.
I mean, I'm 36 now. I've been doing it for about 15 years, but not in this way. I mean,
right.
Last year, I was called to it. The universe was like, you need to do this now because this is your role. You're part of it. And so I felt it deep within me to help others heal and to help them. And so this, I think that you are called to it. But yes, that's what the elves represented. They simply just were they were the old souls. They were the guides and the teachers. And then they passed down the baton to mankind and to the hobbits. The hobbits, they had their time coming. And I think that if we could continue the story after mankind, the hobbits' time would come. And in fact, I think that's kind of what we were seeing is that Frodo was representing the idea of and also Bilbo, of course, but Frodo was representing the evolution of hobbits, that they were not always stuck within the Shire and kind of kept to themselves and only what they were familiar with, but that Frodo represented taking that next step and actually rising the consciousness of the hobbits. And so I believe there's no hierarchy in the universe. We're all equal. We all just have different phases and times, and that's it.
That's an interesting theory. I never thought of that. I actually thought that it would be, okay, it's the end of the third song. We got to sing this over again. We got to do this all over. So you guys, do this and do this. And, I got the humans over here. We got the elves over here. We got the Valar and the Maiar here. And we have the Faerie still, they're still hanging out for whatever reason. And hey, let's start over again. And Eru comes around and, because, he's moved on. He's done a bunch of other stuff, comes back and says, oh, let's see what happened, And so it might just regenerate itself, new songs, new earth, new everything. So that's kind of how I was seeing it. And maybe the hobbits do have a bigger role. I don't know.
I mean, it would be wonderful to see that. And I do believe that what you were saying about there was a regeneration. Well, we see that with Aragorn and Arwen's child, who then represents a new, because, the elves were gone, but Arwen was still there. So the child represented that hybrid once again of the humans with the elven type of.
There was a lot of examples of half elvens in the books. I mean, even Elrond himself, and he chose the elven. His brother Elros chose the human, so they had that choice. Yeah. And so that's why Arwen could choose. Otherwise, if she was pure elven, she would not have had that choice. But she wasn't. And then, of course, Aragorn, because he was part Númenórean, there was elven bloodline, even in, so there was, anyway.
I think that Tolkien, let's talk about the Númenóreans.
Yes,
okay. Númenóreans. They, I think, represented a little bit of kind of what the Book of Enoch talks about, but not in a dark way, but actually in a very light way, in the idea that there were some ancient beings that were older and they mingled with the humans and they created a whole other line. And I think when you look at the Book of Enoch, the idea of the fallen angels, I think that Tolkien kind of had that similar type of parallel where he was talking about that. I mean, that's intuitively, that's just what, when I first read about the idea of Aragorn having a bit of Elvish within him, then I started thinking and said, well, then this is very much like the Book of Enoch in the idea of the first fallen angels coming down and then mingling with the humans. But in Tolkien's world, the elves were not fallen. Well, at least not, they were still good people, as he called it. They denied Valinor, they didn't go to the west, but they were still good folk. They were still very, so I think that Tolkien really left a lot open for us to kind of complete. And I wonder what he would think today, but I do feel that he would be kind of excited to see this Elven awakening happening within humans, and not only Elven awakening, but Hobbit awakening, and people just kind of embracing his story in a very deep way that maybe he couldn't even see happening, because he was just such a modest person. I just don't think that he would even think that I don't think that he understood how important his stories were actually becoming, that they were almost a roadmap to what is going on, and as far as the different phases and the way that a species evolves and moves on, like you said, and the song ends. So I think it's just wonderful. Now the rituals that you have here, now you have several. I thought this was really great. You have the Elven Star. So that's wonderful. And you have...
And that does not come from Tolkien. That comes from we put the 7-pointed star, which has been kind of a fairy elven star even before we got involved in that.
I think
came up with the fact that we have a 7-day week. We have 7 pairs of, Valar. Even if you put Ulmo and Nienna, who are single, you put them, kind of as one and the other, so that it's 14 Valar. You divide it in half, it's 7. So we felt that that it was still a good resonance. Now, I realize that there's some people that might disagree because of the numbers being 6. Okay, the elves had 6-day weeks and this type of thing. But honestly, I tried that whole thing. It's pretty inconvenient to practice a 6-day week when we have a 7-day week. Pretty inconvenient.
No, I think it was,
I mean, unless you're really dedicated. Okay.
7 is a sacred number. There's a lot of magical properties to
I would, and I still think the 7 is in between. Again, you know, the fairy energy, like a lot of other realms get included in the 7 because it's so mystical. I agree with you. So, before I go into this more deeply, because we do have like the Elven language, etc., I wanted to tell you about the language of light. There's a guy who's a Llewellyn author named Aaron Leach, who he and I actually had some conversations between the Enochian languages of the, you know, that were channeled by John Dee or what have you, resonating with the Valaran language of Tolkien. That there's parallels. Okay. The other thing is that the Tengwar, there's an older Tengwar style that is very similar to Sanskrit symbols. And I think that Sanskrit even is a language thread, you know, the Indo-European. I mean, it's like Indo-European. I mean, it's like, you know, Sanskrit is a part of, I think, at the roots of, and this is why I think that the Hindu energies are also in the Elven energies, because of all of these things, this melting pot. I mean, this is the melting pot. Tolkien figured out the recipe.
He did.
You know?
He did.
He really did. And it's awesome. Thank you, Bard Tolkien. I don't know if there will ever be another like you. So,
and you have the different hand positions, which is really great.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell the viewers that when you get this book, it actually demonstrates to you physically, or describes physically, what you should be doing. So it has 4 o'clock, your hand position should be at 4 o'clock. And then you say El Enya, which is the star day. And then 8 o'clock, a Narya, Sunday. So you actually...
Yeah, so you draw the star in front of you.
Yeah, so it's really wonderful that you actually have a layout of how people can do the different types of physical representations of, you know, just honoring the different Valar. And of course, Eru.
And you don't know this yet, but we actually even have the pairs of the Valar matched up with this, and some of the holiday. I mean, like, there's more resonation of correspondences that we have figured out with this. But we wanted to keep it simple, you know.
Yes, and I think it's great.
And as it is, it's really thorough too.
It is, and so people can really, you know, when they read it, it's almost like you give a nice step-by-step process of, you know, where to stand, or at least what to do, and then what you do with your hands, the different things that you say. So I think that this is great. Like here you have chapter 5, extend final acknowledgements and open the circle. So you say, our work is done. We acknowledge the existence of Iluvatar, all that is, and the flame imperishable, while we are in circle, and we thank the Christ Spirit for being with us in circle. May we see your presence in all outside this circle. Laita. So I think that this is really great because you allow people to follow step by step. Now, you said this is just one ritual, correct? But you have lots of different dates in here as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the dates? You have solar observances of the 7 feast holidays. Can you tell us a little bit about the 7 feast holidays?
Yes, indeed. So we have the 7 feast holidays according to Tolkien, and if any of you want the reference, it's Return of the King. Go to the appendices. They're all there, okay? So we figured out the days by matching it up with the calendar, wherein you line up like the first day of spring, and it's like, oh, that sounds like, you know, and the May 22nd date, which would be opposite of the November 21st date, these were the first day of a season, and it aligned perfectly with, you know, the rituals, or like the holidays that we noticed. So that's why we went ahead and like put it in the slot, because of hey, wow, this resonates. It's the right time of the year, everything. So we have March 28th, which is the Vinya Loa, which is the new year. Elven New Year starts on March 28th. And by the way, March 27th, therefore, when it comes back around, would be Metare. We did not put that in here. We just felt like it was easier to leave that out for now. But normally, I guess we would have put it after February 1st. Okay. So May 22nd, we came up with that date, but the reason we came up with that date is because it happens to also be the start of summer. Okay, perfect timing, birth of flowers, Beltane. Oh, wow, isn't that the start of summer in the pagan path? Oh, yeah. So that's why we chose, rather than May 1st, we chose May 22nd, because it actually resonated with the elven calendar, not the human calendar. You see what I'm saying? So June 21st being the gates of summer, Taurni and Austa, there's a nice, there's a very wonderful story. If you read about Gondolin, they have a midsummer ritual wherein they stay up all night long, and when at the crack of dawn, when they see the sun coming up, they all burst into song. So that's pretty awesome. We thought, oh yeah, we'll include that one for sure. August 2nd being the counterpart to the February 1st. Again, in the pagan calendar, I guess it would be Imbolc and Lammas, right? Here, it would be the harvest Yavie, because that's when the season of fall starts. Okay, so that's why we have that marker. And September 25th through the 27th is the middle days. That's what this book is about. Okay, this is the middle days ceremony,
which is
only.
So
yeah, and it aligns with Orome. You'll see like the alignments that we had that put with the Valar. So we aligned Faerie with the new year, because she's the one that cuts the thread of the old year done to the new year. So she's the weaver. That's why we put her here. Vana, who is the younger sister of Yavanna, totally perfect fit for birth of flowers. Okay, that's what Nosnal Leo means. Yeah. And we have Anar, the sun, being the one that's resonated with in the energies and basically Laureline energy, okay, for the height of summer. Makes sense. We have the Yavie season, and we decided Arda herself fits really well in the season of harvest, meaning why are we here on the planet? And so we resonate with Arda on that day. We have Orome, who is the wanderer, and he wandered in Middle Earth the most out of all the Valar and loves the elves. So we have him for the middle days, because those were times of travel for the elves in the stories. So we decided to match Orome up with that. The sixth season of Tolkien is December 21st, the log drawing, which is Turu Halme. And we align that with Isil, the moon, because it's the opposite of the sun. Okay, so it made sense to do that way at the longest night of the year, that you resonate with the night sky and Isil, the moon, and also Telperion energy. February 1st, we align with the purification, and it's the first day of Koire, which is the stirring season. This is the one that precedes the spring. So it's between winter and the springtime. And so we align that with Nienna, because she is the purification epitome of the Valar. She uses her tears to restore everything to original form. And that's a pretty awesome power. And a lot of people in our path resonate with Nienna, by the way. And so the rest of the Valar we have lined up with the moons, okay? And the moons are on the next page, the lunar correspondences. So the holiday that we added to the calendar, thank you, Dave, because you are the bomb. You figured this out because of your astronomy geekness. November 21st happens to be the first day of winter. He also figured out from his star studies that it was the actual day that Sirius is up in the sky, and the whole scene in the Silmarillion that describes the Elven awakening, he figured out was this time of the year. So we said, hey, we'll have an Elven awakening holiday. And so that is a Tië Eldaliéva original. And I'm pretty sure he has that in Ilsalunte Valion also, the sister group. So that would be the overview of the solar holidays. And then the lunar holidays, because they have special names, elvish names that went with them. But it was the Numenorians that had adopted this calendar, because the seasons were enough, I think, for the elven calendar. But if you do the moons, you need to differentiate them using the months. And so we use the Numenorian dates. And that's not the only thing that we decided to use from the Numenorians. We decided to create the 7-day week where you have the star in the front. We talked to you about Star Day, which is Saturday, Sun Day, Moon Day, Monday, Trees Day for the 2 trees, which is Tuesday. So the day that we added was the Thursday being Erenya, which is the Sea Day or Mariner's Day. That's a Numenorian. So we made it a 7-day week when we made the star. And also we made an extra moon because as we know, we have 13 moons sometimes, not just 12. So we had to add one, and we decided to give it to the Maiar and also like resonate that also with the fairy beings also, so that we have the extra moon like resonating with something that was, like extra. So that's the overview of that.
So that's really wonderful that you have that comprehension within this book for people to understand a little bit more about, the dates that are in the Silmarillion and also in the Lord of the Rings books. Now, can I ask you, you said a little bit that you have a community that takes part in this. Can you tell me a little bit of what do those rituals look like? Do you actually go outside and do you partake in these? What does it look like?
We would, I guess, if we could. But many times, this was back in the day before smartphones and all of that. We were doing it on the internet with Skype.
Oh, wow.
And stuff like that. Yeah. So we ended up like using the computer a lot. After so many years, like many of us, and you know how this works, like, we have lives and like we can't all meet at the same time. Nathan was married and had a new daughter at the time. So he scaled way back on everything. And that was totally fine. I really understood that. And their daughter is awesome. So I feel like in a way it's because of you coming back in our circles and some of these other things that it's time to like probably get this reawakened again. And I actually have thought about, because of technology being more awesome, there's Facebook Live, there's all these kinds of things that we did not have in 2005, 2007. So we actually thought about having Enderry as a ritual that could be followed live, maybe even on the 25th or 26th or 27th. We haven't decided. We have a YouTube channel. It's called Tië Eldaliéva. It's the Elven Path, and you'll see it. It'll probably be linked somewhere.
Isn't that amazing? I made my group Elven Light Path, and then you already had that. So it just shows that there's so many people coming together that have the same idea, that Elven Light. This is what Tolkien was trying to bring into the world with his elves. So this is exactly what people are resonating with. I think that
Galadriel, the name Galadriel means the Lady of Light. Everybody probably knows that. But my name, Calantirniel, means the guardian of the gift of light. So there's a lot of light, and I'm guessing that elves light, it kind of makes sense. There's a lot of light. And then the sound that translates the light is the pathway in order to manifest. So meaning that when we sang things into existence for the earth and, creating Arda, it was done through sound. So I thought it was interesting that it started with light, had sound, and then manifestation in Arda. I thought that was just such a cool resonance. And I know that a lot of pagan paths, there's a lot about like sexual magic and some of these other types of things. And after I figured out with the Elven Path, I'm like, oh, this is so much easier.
Yeah. I mean, Would you say, now I have not gotten a chance to do a lot of research about this, but when I have read the books, it takes me into their elven community, and it's so beautiful. The feasts are out, they eat, it's a starlight feast, they dance, they sing. What, what would you say that these nights look like when they have these celebrations?
Wow. Well, and actually, I sometimes wonder, was it before the sun and the moon had their days? And, because there's been several changes about how the days work. Sometimes, like, the sun went in reverse. I mean, there's all kinds of things in the stories. When the elves first awakened, there was no Telperion and Laureline. It was just the stars.
Right.
So they had like starlight all the time. So I wonder like how how that worked.
But probably at least by the second age. I mean, they would definitely have the feasts and the dances and
and then the two lamps prior to the trees that then created the fruit and the flower that created the sun and the moon. I mean, like, there's a whole process there, but
yeah, I thought that was really beautiful how Tolkien described that the light from the Telperion and the Laurelin tree were really the sun and the moon light that we have. And I just think that he did a wonderful job of just creating a really beautiful creation myth, and that it kind of paralleled to what people would understand, how our own universe came into existence. And I actually had a video that was about Tolkien reaching into knowledge about string theory and the idea of how frequencies and vibrations create the matter around. And so, of course, music was involved in that. And so when you think about these elven communities and these certain holidays come through, it really can take you into a beautiful place of where everybody's just jolly and there's lots of good cheer, and it's just really beautiful. And I really wish that we could get a huge amount of people together and actually have these types of feasts on these actual days. I think that would just be so phenomenal.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
We could
like when the travel gets really cheap and everything, and we're going to be in like Northern California at our buddy Arendiel's house and like having a big ritual in Northern California near Mount Shasta, or we might even have one on the East Coast. We might have one overseas. We might have one in Australia, like or New Zealand. Like we haven't decided like exactly where, but oh yes, I feel like in a way I'd like to have multiple places to have these kinds of rituals, like in the long run of like, when the path grows, because I know it's going to grow. I just feel it. I know that it's like, oh, it's on now. We've had to wait for 10 years and now people are getting it. They're interested. They're not making fun of us anymore, because when we first started this, trust me, we had a lot of people making fun of us. So that's not happening anymore. And I mean, true that like some people, haters will be haters, but it actually means that there's really good energy on the other side of that. And you just have to harvest it, right?
There is, definitely.
Yeah. So yes, we're working on that. I thought it would be neat to like have like the recipes for food and stuff, even though it's kind of funny. I think that the elves, because they were immortal and they were just light as they were, they probably never had to eat, but they probably enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah, they had the lembas bread and Lothlorien. They had some type of food, but it was
and the wines and some of the things, you never. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think about that, and then I think about the hobbits that had to eat all the time,
Yeah, and the Mirkwood elves, they ate a kind of a regular meal, but then the high elves like the Rivendell and the Lothlorien, they were only described to eat lembas bread.
Yeah,
I don't know if there was anything else there, but
and I don't even think that they had to. Like, I really think that they just did that to celebrate because of their existence in Middle Earth. I think that they could have just as well, like, we don't have to eat.
Yeah, they don't have to.
And just did their thing. But, they also walked on the top of the snow. You remember that, right?
Yes. So
great.
can I ask you, so if you're not able to go outside and, meet with like a group of people, you can do these types of rituals on your own, do you do them, you know, outside in your garden, or you do it outside, you know?
Yeah, I actually, when I make my, well, I don't draw a circle the way that like a lot of pagans do. I just allow it to like naturally fill the space, but I usually encompass like at least my whole house and the yard, and then maybe some bleed over if it wants to.
Yes.
And I really don't, I'm not too, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not too stringent on how it works. I'm more about the energy more than I am about the method. And that's why I wanted a way for people to, that just had this, a copy of the Silmarillion, okay, and their hands and their will. No tools necessary.
Exactly. Yeah, there
No
is no tools.
That was deliberate.
I like that a lot. It is really just about, there's a meditation in here, which is nice. And there is just a way of using the hands to feel more connected and to help you. And we should demonstrate a ritual. What do you say?
Okay, sure. We'll demonstrate Enderi, and this could be done on September 25th to 27th of any year.
Okay.
It's the middle days, and so we're going to demonstrate that here for you.
Yes, because it's coming up.
So we're gonna start with Linde Ellen Lote, which is the Song of the Starflower. Now, we don't have a picture of it here, but we have a picture of it elsewhere on the website. There's a 7-pointed star flower that we like to, rather than like have the star, but this was easier to like follow, you know, for like tracing. But we would probably overlay this with an actual image of the star flower and then go to the points of the star flower, like if it was up to us. But you know how it is. Like, can't have everything. But we'll start with at the 4 o'clock position. Okay, so in front of you, wherever you are. Okay, just 4 o'clock position, and you can tone. And so part of the hand motions and the toning.
Uh-oh. I just lost you. Hopefully she'll come back. Well, I hope you all are enjoying this. I am. I think it's a really great book. Definitely pick it up when you can. The Song of the Starflower. So she reads right here. Begin this in the center of the area in which you will be practicing your ritual, facing east. The direction of origins, Pavilion, while visualizing mists of swirling gold and silver light, naturally creating ritual area, above, below, throughout the middle, and finally strengthened in the center, outward. And while toning, hold your hands outward, and when toning, then bring the hands together at the heart chakra in the Namaste hand position, which looks like a prayer. And if that feels right, then tone Eru. So you would do the Namaste, Eru. Tone it. And alternatively, you can tone Aluve, the all or everywhere, or Aluvatar. And the idea is to acknowledge in a balanced way the all that is. And if you are Christian, you may wish to call instead upon the Christ consciousness at this time in your own way. And whatever type of spiritual path that you have, you can kind of substitute it. So I think that is absolutely wonderful that you're able to substitute if you have a different type of religious path, and you feel more comfortable praying, or at least devoting your attention to your own idea or vision of God. Well, I think that we finally did lose her. Unfortunately, I don't know if she's going to come back. I can try to invite one more time. So I think this is wonderful. And you know, I love the 7-pointed star. That's actually my little icon. It means otherkin. It also resonates with me being from the Pleiades, and the Pleiades and the Syrians and the Lyrans have so much in common. The Lyrans were basically the first, and I went through this in my starseed chronological order type of video where you go through the age of the star systems. And so the Lyrans, the Syrians, the Pleiadians, they all are connected. They're interrelated in so many ways. And I had that other video where I talked about the planets and the stars that were in Tolkien. And it's wonderful to actually see that all these stars came out. You have the Halun, you have all these stars, and then after the elves awaken, and then they bring on the Pleiades. They come later as kind of a celebration that the elves awoken. That's what Varda did. So there's all these stars that are correlating to what people resonate with as an origin before Earth. And of course, that is just no coincidence there that a lot of elven souls will actually feel very close to stars and very much like star seeds. So this book is really wonderful for not just elven souls, but also starseed souls or anyone that likes to partake in very deep type of rituals that just help you kind of focus your thought. And I definitely am going to partake in this on those special days. I think that it would be really great to do so. And I know that we lost her, unfortunately. I don't know if we can get her back anytime soon, but I will try to have her on again. Hopefully they will have another book which will talk about the next type of ritual that you can do. So this is all for the middle days, September 25th through the 27th. But of course, in the back of the book, it gives you an idea of the different solar observances that correlate to the different feasts that the elves actually had within the stories. So a nice idea to actually apply what Tolkien wrote so that people can partake in the same rituals and the same type of spirituality. So I know that we lost her, but I will try to have Calantirniel again soon. And I hope you all enjoyed this and are even more convinced that you can have any type of spiritual path and you can still observe being an elf and feeling connected with your elven soul to everything around you. What Tolkien was able to do and what this book does too is it allows a pagan to dedicate their interests or their focus on the Valar, but then it allows somebody who is more of a theist, who believes in just one creator only, for them to focus on just Eru Iluvatar. So there is the two sides there, which is wonderful to see because that's what our world actually needs. Our world needs theists and pagans, the polytheists and just the monotheists to come together and understand that you're really honoring and devoting yourself to the same source. It's just that that source becomes divided and represents different aspects of itself. And the book does that. And I just think that that's exactly what we need more in the world, is to bring people together and unite them in that kind of way. So I hope you all enjoyed that. Peace, love, light, and unity to you all. Please check out her book on Amazon and on Kindle. You can find it. If you just Google Elven Spirituality, it does pop up. So it's easy to find. If you have any questions or you can't find it yourself, please email me at elvenlightpath@hotmail.com and I will send you a link. I'll actually put a link in the description below so that you can easily find it. But if you have any questions, then please contact me. I'll also include their website in the description so you can take a look as well. So Hananle for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.